Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The Archbishop of Kansas City, which is the diocese wherein the new church in St. Mary's, Kansas is located, the Immaculata, which has, been talked about a lot because of its importance and grandeur and beauty. Well, this bishop was just asked by Catholic Family News what he believes about attending Mass at the Society of St. Pius X. Are they schismatic? Does it fulfill your Sunday obligation? And so on and so forth. This has been a big debate as of late. The podcast YouTube magisterium has desired to show Catholics that the SSPX are schismatic and that they don't fulfill your Sunday obligation and so on and so forth, which of course we've all known is complete nonsense if we have the ability to walk and chew gum and actually do research for ourselves. But the Archbishop of Kansas City has come out and affirmed what common sense people have known. And here's an article from Catholic Family News. And kudos to Matt Gaspers and Brian McCall for what they've done, because it really is an excellent piece of journalism. And here's the article. And it says, exclusive, Archdiocese of Kansas City comments on SSPX in light of recent Immaculata Church consecration. And the beginning of this article does have a lot of the background information about the Immaculata. I've done a video on that before. I'm not going to read through this whole part here, but if you don't know, the SSPX built a beautiful new church in St. Mary's, Kansas. I was there. It was amazing. It was consecrated by Bishop Fillet. Absolutely stunning. And it's huge. It's beautiful. Now, here's the backstory of what Archbishop Lefebvre, the reason he bought it. This is actually a little bit interesting. And Archbishop Lefebvre did say, I would never have accepted the purchase of St. Mary's without this magnificent sanctuary. Referring to a fire that burnt down the original church, he said the fire was a true catastrophe, a stroke of the devil. May God help you to rebuild this religious edifice for the honor of St. Mary's, for the good of the society, and for the salvation of America. It is a national basilica. I propose that the Society of St. Pius X participate universally in this, that a collection be made everywhere for the restoration of this sanctuary, which must be like a beacon guiding souls towards their eternity. Mary is the Stella Matutina, the star that guides the mariners. May she be the guide of all Americans. Archbishop Lefebvre really did have great hopes for this this location. So, this is what the article says. It says, I'll make it a little bit bigger here. There you go. The day before the consecration of the new Immaculata by Bishop Bernard Fillet, a local news station from Topeka featured a story on the church, which a reporter emphasized can be seen from miles away. And you can see just how big and beautiful the church is there. After seeing the secular media pick up the story, I was curious to know if the Archbishop of Kansas City had issued a statement on the new Immaculata and the SSPX more generally, given the Society's canonically irregular status in the church. I discuss all of this in my book, which you can see right here, SSPX, The Defense. And by the way, check out Taylor Marshall's show. The links for that are in the description. Him and I discussed the SSPX and my new book at length. That show is just being released today. After searching the Archdiocesan website and finding nothing, I decided to send the following inquiry to the Archdiocese Office of Media Relations. And here was the questions from Catholic Family News. I'm writing to ask if the Archdiocese of Kansas City has an official position on the Society of St. Pius X, and specifically if the Archdiocese has any comment about the consecration ceremony which took place yesterday, May 3rd, so this was, a month ago. These are the questions. Does Archbishop Naumann consider the members of the SSPX to be schismatic? If yes, on what grounds? Does Archbishop Naumann hold that Catholics may fulfill their Sunday and Holy Day obligation by attending a Mass offered by an SSPX priest? If no, on what grounds? Does Archbishop Naumann ever grant faculties to SSPX priests to witness Catholic marriages in accord with the Pontifical Commission Ecclesiae Dei's 2017 letter? Thank you for your time and attention to my questions. I look forward to hearing back from you. Here is the response. Now, keep in mind when you read this or listen to this that we are going to be seeing some of the new church, modernist, post-Vatican II gobbledygook, which I discuss at length in my book, but nonetheless, this is a pretty amazing response. And he says, while regrettably the Church and the SSPX are not in full communion, the Archdiocese does not consider the SSPX a schismatic. This is pretty interesting. The Church and the SSPX are not in full communion. That's a very fascinating response because the Church and the SSPX are not in full communion. Does this mean that it seems, personally at this point, seeing how these bishops use the word full communion, I think it really just means in their minds something like a perfect working relationship, because regrettably the Church and the SSPX are not in full communion. So is it that the Church is not in full communion with the SSPX, or the SSPX is not in full communion with the Church? It seems to be, and I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt, it just seems to be regrettably meaning there's not a perfect working relationship there. Anyway, but he goes on to say, but the Archdiocese does not consider the SSPX to be schismatic. So historically, if someone were out of communion with Rome, we would assume them to be schismatic, whereas this bishop doesn't really, he seems to think that they're not schismatic, which is of course true, but that they're not in full communion with each other. What does that mean? I have no idea. Anyway, he continues saying, while canonically one may fulfill one's obligation to participate at Holy Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation by attending an SSPX Mass. We're going to stop right there. Canonically, one may fulfill one's obligation. He's saying legally. So yes, you can fulfill your Sunday obligation. That's really the whole of the answer. He says the Masses are not licitly offered by priests possessing the grant of priestly faculties from the Archdiocese. Therefore, participation at SSPX Masses to satisfy one's Sunday obligation is discouraged. Let's break that. That's an interesting one. The Masses are not licitly offered by priests possessing the grant of priestly faculties from the Archdiocese. So, read between the lines here for a second. If you were a traveling priest who was not from the Archdiocese of Kansas City, and you went to somebody's house in a town around the Archdiocese or in Kansas, and you know you're a priest and your brother lives in the town, and your brother says, hey, I'm going to invite the family. You've got a big Catholic family, so inviting the family means 10 brothers and sisters and all their kids. All of a sudden, you got 70, 80 people in your backyard for you to say Mass. This hypothetical. That would be to offer Mass without the technical, licit granting of priestly faculties from that Archdiocese. That's what that would mean. So this is a very interesting way he's put it. This bishop is very careful with his words here. And the Masses are not licitly offered by priests possessing the grant of priestly faculties from the Archdiocese. He didn't say the Masses are illicit. He said that the priests who offer Masses here don't have priestly faculties from the Archdiocese. Yeah, that's a statement of fact. The SSPX is not part of the diocese there. Nothing really controversial here, but interesting wording. Continues, he says, the Archdiocese does, in support of Pope Francis's pastoral outlook as expressed in the 2017 letter, grant SSPX priests the faculty to witness marriages when the priests request it. The Archdiocese understands that at this time the SSPX priests in St. Mary's request faculties to witness all marriages at the Immaculata. So what does this mean? It means that every time the SSPX witnesses a marriage, it is completely and explicitly recognized by the Archdiocese, which does mean actually some of the Masses offered are with faculties, because there would be Masses, the wedding Masses, and obviously the wedding ceremony, and is not the Mass, but obviously it's implied when you're going to have a marriage in a traditional Catholic Church, it's going to be a Mass. So the Archdiocese does recognize their jurisdiction for Masses, does recognize that it does fulfill your Sunday obligation, and does not consider them to be schismatic. Now, I'm sure that the Pope-splainer magisterium is going to say, look, all this says is that the SSPX are big, meanie, poo-poo heads, and look at those jerks, because the Archdiocese said that they do not have faculties from that diocese. Now, however, you can go to Mass there, but that doesn't matter. The reality is, my friends, is that this conversation about the SSPX is, of course, a very confusing one. But all you need to know is that in the most important and most providentially, I guess important, I've already used the right adjective, but in this very important spot, with this amazing new church, during a time when the whole SSPX question has been on people's minds, and many internet commentators have said you cannot fulfill the Sunday obligation, apparently this bishop decided to make his own decision and didn't ask the who's who on the internet for permission to have this opinion. So, basically, this bishop is following the strict letter of the law of the church, and he is doing what he's supposed to do. Now, of course, we haven't touched on all of the issues around the crisis in the church. This is just very strict letter of the law, and of course we understand that in a crisis, the word licit, for example, means with permission. Okay, do you have permission to carry on the tradition of the church? Do you need permission for that? Do you have permission to be a light in the darkness for people who just can't bring themselves to be part of the diocesan wasteland structure of this and that and the other thing? There are many things here, obviously, that we could say, but very fascinating. As Matt Gaspers says, thus, it is now a matter of public record that the Archdiocese of Kansas City does not consider the SSPX to be schismatic, affirms that Catholics do canonically fulfill, meaning legally, their Sunday and Holy Day obligation at SSPX Mass, and does grant SSPX the faculty to witness marriages when the priest requests it. Now, of course, as well, the bishop is going to say we discourage attending Mass there because they have to say that. I can't think of any bishop who would say, I encourage you to attend Mass at the SSPX. They're just not going to say that. But if they're saying that you can, then I wonder if the bishops would say, while you can fulfill your Sunday obligation in our diocese, I would discourage you to do it at a parish with a modernist priest. Right? Kind of think of the relevant information there. Gaspers goes on to say, lingering issue of full communion. Nevertheless, what are Catholics to make of the familiar claim repeated by the Archdiocese, not full communion? Over the years, this phrase has become standard on the part of popes and other prelates while addressing the SSPX. Benedict, for example, recalling his remission of the excommunications, wrote that he hoped his gesture would help the SSPX rediscover the path to full communion with the Church. And Francis, when granting all SSPX priests habitual faculties to absolve sins, explained he did so, of course, for full communion. What does full communion mean? According to the 1983 Code of Canon Law, those baptized are fully in the communion of the Catholic Church on this earth who are joined with Christ in its visible structure by the bonds of the profession of faith, the sacraments, and ecclesial governance. Members of the SSPX clearly possess the same faith and share in the same sacraments of the Catholic Church. They also have habitual faculties to absolve sins from the recurrent Roman Pontiff, who likewise authorizes local ordinaries the possibility to grant faculties for the celebration of marriages of faithful who follow the pastoral activity of the society, taking for granted that the names, those same nuptial masses, by their very nature are public masses, will be celebrated by the SSPX. How then does the SSPX not meet the canonical criteria for full communion? Is it because they lack what Benedict called a canonical status in the Church? If so, on what grounds are they denied a canonical status? Anyway, this is all demonstrated in my book. If to be in full communion with the Church, it means in communion with the Church, it means to have the faith, to be baptized, and to be under the governance of the Church. Clearly, the SSPX are in the Church. Clearly, they do have governance of the Church, and clearly, they have the faith. So anyway, very interesting. Yes, you can fulfill your Sunday obligation at the SSPX according to the Bishop of the St. Mary's of the Archdiocese of Kansas City. So if you'd like to make a pilgrimage down to St. Mary's to see this beautiful church and attend Mass, I recommend you do because it's absolutely stunning. And for all the malcontents out there who would like to tell this bishop that he's wrong and he really doesn't know as much as you, perhaps you can write your own letter to the bishop like Matt Gaspers did and ask him why. And then maybe you can stop telling Catholics that you can't fulfill your Sunday obligation at the SSPX and stop lying to people. All right. As I said, this is just a brief overview. we're taking this here at the letter of the law. What is the bishop saying when he's asked? But of course, we understand there's a wider context with the SSPX given the crisis in the church. And you can find all the information you need to find in there in my book, SSPX, The Defense. And again, check out Taylor Marshall as the show is being released today, and the link for that is in the description to this video. Excellent. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, let me know what you think in the comments. And finally, backed by popular demand, I do have to thank our sponsor, the TKR Store. KennedyReport.com, and visit the TKR Store to see our new products. Kennedy's Choice Beard Oil. You can use this on your beard to help with alleviating itchiness, dryness, and irritation of skin. And don't worry, no animals were used in testing this product except for myself. Use Kennedy's Choice Beard Balm for a softer, healthier, manageable beard that is made with natural ingredients. And trust me, I know a thing or two about beards. Visit thekennedyreport.com and check out the TKR Store. The links for this are in the description. If you want to make sure that your face sweater is not so unruly, check out the links in the description for that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, let me know what you think in the comments. This has been the Kennedy Report. Until next time, God bless.